Bubble wrap. This item wasn't originally intended as packaging at all. In 1957, engineers Alfred Fielding and Mark Chavon wanted to create a new type of wallpaper. They glued together two transparent plastic sheets, trapping air bubbles between them. The result was a bumpy, textured material. But as wallpaper, it failed completely. No one wanted bubble-covered walls at home. They then tried to use the material for insulation, but that didn't work either. Only 3 years later did they find the perfect use for it: packaging for fragile items. The first major client was IBM, which in 1961 needed reliable protection for shipping computers by mail. Bubble wrap turned out to be perfect. Fun fact: bubble wrap even has a holiday. Since 2001, the U.S. has celebrated Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day on the last Monday of January. And of course, everyone knows it not just as packaging, but as a stress reliever. Popping bubbles became almost a form of entertainment. Potato chips were invented by accident in 1853 in Saratoga Springs, USA, at a restaurant called Moon's Lake House. One picky customer kept complaining that the fried potatoes were too thick and soft. In frustration, the chef, George Crumb, sliced the potatoes as thinly as he possibly could, fried them until crispy, and salted them generously. Instead of being angry, the customer loved them, and the new dish quickly became a hit. They were called Saratoga chips, and the restaurant became famous. Later, chips began to be mass-produced, and in the 1920s, manufacturers started sealing them in airtight bags to keep them fresh and crunchy. Fun fact: George Crumb was half African-American and half Native American. His accidental invention grew into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Tea bags. This story began in 1908 in New York. Tea merchant Thomas Sullivan sent out free tea samples to his customers. Since tin containers were expensive, he used small silk bags instead. He expected customers to pour the tea out of the bags into teapots, but some simply dipped the bags directly into hot water. To everyone's surprise, it worked perfectly. It was convenient, quick, and didn't affect the flavor. Thus, the first tea bag was born. Later, silk was replaced with gauze and special paper, and the idea spread worldwide. At first, the British were skeptical of this American gimmick, claiming it spoiled good tea, but convenience won in the end. By the mid-20th century, tea bags had become a global standard. Scotch tape. In the 1920s, 3M engineer Richard Drew noticed a problem. Car painters couldn't neatly separate colors when painting vehicles. The tape they used was too sticky and would peel off fresh paint. Drew decided to create a tape that would stick but could also be removed cleanly. The first version had glue only along the edges. One frustrated worker said, "Tell your Scotch bosses not to be so stingy with the adhesive." Scotch meaning stingy in English. The name stuck, literally, and became a famous brand. Later, Drew improved his design with a transparent base so it could be used to seal the popular new material, cellophane. It became a hit product. During the Great Depression, people used Scotch tape to repair almost anything: books, lampshades, even cracked dishes. In 1932, the tape dispenser with a serrated edge was invented, and it hasn't changed much since. A simple household observation turned into one of the world's most useful tools. Vaseline. The story of Vaseline began in 1859. A young chemist named Robert Chesbrough traveled to Pennsylvania, where oil drilling was booming. There he noticed workers collecting a dark, greasy substance that built up on oil rigs, a byproduct of crude oil called rod wax. It clogged equipment, but workers used it to heal cuts and burns, and it worked surprisingly well. Chesbrough took samples back to his lab and, after many experiments, refined the material into a pure, light-colored substance, Vaseline. In 1872, he patented the process and founded his own company. He promoted it in a dramatic way, by burning or cutting his own skin in front of the public, applying Vaseline, and showing the healed wounds days later. It worked. Vaseline became a household staple. Fun fact: in the early 20th century, doctors even recommended applying it inside the nose to treat colds, something that's definitely not advised today. But Vaseline remains widely used in cosmetics and medicine. Ice cream cones. The story of the ice cream cone dates back to 1904 at the World's Fair in St. Louis, USA. An ice cream vendor named Ernest Hamwi worked next to a waffle seller. When ice cream vendors ran out of cups, Hamwi quickly rolled a hot waffle into a cone shape and placed a scoop of ice cream inside. The idea was so practical that others at the fair copied it immediately, and soon the waffle cone spread across America. To this day, there's debate about who truly invented it. Several St. Louis vendors claim credit, but the combination of waffle and ice cream became one of the fair's lasting legacies. Microwave oven. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working at Raytheon on radar research. Standing near an active magnetron, a microwave generator, he noticed something strange. A chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Intrigued, Spencer experimented by placing popcorn kernels near the device. They began to pop. Next, he tried an egg, which exploded from the steam pressure. That's how the idea of cooking food with microwaves was born. In 1947, the company released the first industrial microwave oven, the Rayder-Range, but it was the size of a refrigerator, weighed about 340 kilograms, 750 pounds, and cost around $5,000. Affordable only for restaurants and ships. By the 1970s, microwaves became smaller and suitable for home use. In Japan, they caught on even faster than in the US, since compact kitchens made them especially convenient. Matches. The first chemical matches appeared in the 19th century. English pharmacist John Walker discovered them in 1826 while experimenting with flammable compounds. When he accidentally scraped a wooden stick coated with sulfur, antimony sulfide, and potassium chlorate, it ignited from friction. However, early matches burned too violently and gave off toxic fumes. Later improvements included adding red phosphorus, which made ignition safer and more predictable. Those are the kind of safety matches we still use today. People used to carry matches in special cases, as they could ignite accidentally from rubbing in a pocket. The Russian word for match, spichka, actually comes from spitza, meaning pointed stick. Antibiotics. The key discovery here is penicillin. In 1928, Scottish bacteriologist Alexander Fleming returned from vacation to his lab and noticed something strange. In one of his petri dishes growing staphylococcal bacteria, a blue-green mold, Penicillium notatum, had appeared, and the bacteria around it had died. Fleming realized the mold released a substance that killed harmful microbes. He named it penicillin. At first, no one took the discovery seriously because the substance was unstable and hard to purify. But during World War II, scientists at Oxford managed to produce it on a large scale. Penicillin became a miracle drug, saving hundreds of thousands of wounded soldiers from deadly infections. After the war, the golden age of antibiotics began, with dozens of new drugs discovered, transforming medicine forever. If Fleming had simply thrown away that moldy petri dish, humanity might have had to wait many more years for antibiotics.